What is up, blockchain gang? This is the Daniel Draghi Show, where nearly 10,000 beautiful barbarians play to earn and stay to learn, all the way to the end of the video. Today, we'll be covering some non-financial advice on how to get the most enjoyment out of a pay-to-win video game with an emphasis on play-to-earn titles. We'll start by not wasting any time because time is money, so let's get to work. Or don't you know?
That's the sound of the man working on the chain. Gang. That's the sound of the men working on the chain gang. Can you even say it? Ooh, ah.
I'm sorry, now I owe you all 14 cents. I want to start out by saying that I don't judge anyone for paying for cosmetic items or an advantage in a video game, or choosing not to do so. I would, however, like to take aim at people who try to make other people feel bad for their own purchase choices, and that is none of their business. It also is incomprehensible to believe that power is somehow equal to skill in a pay-to-win game. Power is just the base indicator of how far someone has made it through a game, and competition is only enjoyable when it presents a challenge for all participants. Now, the first thing you should always do is set a budget. I don't care how little or how much money you have or you earn. We set a budget for a variety of reasons. First is that we know that power creep exists. As time goes on, the price of power decreases, often invalidating prior progress in favor of the new round of cash shop craze when content is added to the game. If you wanted to spend $20 on a game or $200,000, doing so on the day the game comes out would be the absolute worst way imaginable. But if you split that amount up over a number of weeks or months, you will not regret spending so much if the game becomes unplayable for any reason during that time. This will also prevent you from making impulse buys due to temporary time gates programmed into the game that can easily be passed with a bit of patience while you focus your efforts on other areas. The biggest thing to remember is that you will always feel more regret from a game than enjoyment if you feel like you have wasted any amount of money on it. So let's defend our joy by only making purchases we can be proud of and say so long to buyer's remorse. So how much should that budget be? For starters, you should never spend money on a video game that you cannot afford to lose in hopes that it will significantly increase the return on your investment. This is just irresponsible behavior, and all games that I cover can be played and earned without investing a penny, which is why this can't be considered financial advice in the first place. So now you should have some idea of the maximum amount you will allow yourself to spend. You should ask yourself how long you plan on playing the game. This can only be gauged by actually playing the game as a free player. It may only take a day or an hour or a week to fall in love with the game, but I would only start spending money when I had a budget, and I would only make a budget for a game I enjoyed. And I would have a pretty good idea of how long I'll enjoy a game based on the genre and how much I see myself playing it in the foreseeable future. Your opinion may change over time, of course, so dividing this budget up over the desired numbers of weeks or months is always going to play out in your favor. I would also add that in a pay-to-win game, you are paying for an advantage, so the amount of money you spend is going to directly influence the difficulty of the game. If you don't spend anything, it's going to be on nightmare mode, and if you whale out, it's going to be on easy mode. Since different levels of challenges appeal to different type of gamers, we shouldn't assume what someone spends on a game is directly related to their financial status. Due to the arcade mentality of the 80s that I was raised on, going farther on a single quarter than any other player has gone before was the real challenge of a game for me. Before spending anything, please consider the time skip paradox. Many cash shop items are tailored around saving the player time or giving them some sort of convenience from having to do a mundane or repetitive task and allowing them to advance through the game faster than a free player. I'd like you to consider that it's probably never a good idea to purchase a skip in a game that is not fun in hopes that it will become fun later on after you get to a certain point. This is a sunken cost fallacy more than anything tangible. You will think it's more enjoyable because you are more invested into the game instead of the other way around. If you can't have fun in a game unless you skip a large portion of it, perhaps you should consider finding another game. The other side of the coin is you are having fun and you spend $10 to skip 1 week of progress. You may have just reduced the total amount of time you will have fun with the game by 1 week. If you get to the end game and have nothing fun left for you to do. The third option is the one I recommend, and that's to only purchase power you would get from a portion of the game that you don't enjoy. That way, you will not force yourself to play those parts you don't like, and you could spend time only playing the part of the game you enjoy without feeling like you're falling behind. For example, if I didn't want to watch zero trope ads on Mir 4, I could just purchase the equivalent package each week without feeling like I'm falling behind the people who watch 20 ads a day. The last thing I want you to consider about time skips and battle passes is that they are temporary in nature. That means that if I decide to buy one, I'm basically deciding to buy it for the rest of the time I am playing. This is because your progress without it will be a slap in the face compared to the rewards you were gaining due to the premium, and that progress is diminished over time anyway. Typically, when I decide the pass is no longer worth paying for, I will also come to the realization that the game isn't worth playing without it. Before we get into gacha or loot box design, please understand that nearly all cash shops work in a specific way. You will have at least 4 tiers of prices available that every item should fall into. The first tier are the normalized prices. These are usually things that you could always buy and probably without any type of limit, such as premium currency. The next tier is the deepest discounts. These are usually over 75% off and very limited in quantity. These are usually designed in a way that make all of the other deals look like total trash in comparison to get the player to make their first purchase. Developers know that if a player spends even $1 on the game, they will be much more likely to spend for additional advantages at some point down the road. Sometimes these packs will have to be bought with premium currency instead of cash, and you'll never be able to get the perfect amount of premium currency from the normalized packs. So you'll always have an additional amount that's just not enough for another deal. This is where the third tier comes in. These are deals that are more around 50% off, where you get the essential items with a bonus of some premium currency that are always better than the normalized prices. Another example could be a battle pass that would usually fall into this pricing category. And then finally we have whale bait. This is any type of gacha pool in order to trigger a pity system that will generate a specific power boost after a certain amount of failed attempts. This also includes any of the standard trash in-game currencies that are normally in abundance unless you are power swiping your way through the game. I would never recommend these purchases, however it is always a good idea to test your luck with the free premium currency that you earn from playing the game when possible. The main reason for these packages isn't to make people buy them, but to make all of the other items in the shop look like great deals by comparison. It also enhances the rewards that the game gives you for playing when you see their perceived value in the shop in real money, premium currency, or tokens. You think, wow, I just got $10 worth of stuff for doing that event, when in reality less than 1% of players are actually paying that much, and most of them are just doing it so that the viewers of their content can play vicariously through them. Now let's talk about your budget, which tiers you consider, and which I would advise on being off limits. First of all, don't think that this doesn't apply to you if you're a freed player. Anyone could take a portion of their earnings and reinvest them back into their progression for additional power and earnings while still being free to play. That is why this term is kind of a misnomer now. The new free to play are earners. These people only focus on what they can earn in the game, like they're trying to speed run a Lambo. So they would probably not even open the cash shop unless there was a free daily reward or one that uses trash currency, which is typical these days, like free samples at the grocery store or your first line of cocaine. These people have the hardest game in my opinion, because it is likely that every single person is as strong, if not much stronger than they are in the game. The next set of players are pikers. A piker is someone who only spends the bare minimum needed to get by. These are players with small or no budgets, but are fine if they don't extract maximum profit in lieu of extra power. They are only buying the limited 80 to 90% off packages as needed with guaranteed rewards. It would be better for these players to save their budget to max out best in slot items when possible, instead of items that will be trumped in power as they progress in the game. Our next category to players is small spenders who are willing to spend about $50 to $100 a month or more in order to be competitive. These players will buy all of the great deals and the vast majority of the good deals in the shop. They'll probably buy a premium sub or daily deal, or maybe even dabble in gacha, even though I sternly warned them not to. And it will probably take a long time to trigger that pity system, and that budget is better spent elsewhere. Now we have the dolphins, who buy the cheap packs, the discount packs, the battle pass subs, and the occasional top up of premium currency to rage at the gacha system because they have not accepted the fact that, like high school, they probably won't get lucky. It's really not that big of a deal. It happens all the time. Finally, we have the whales who open up the cash shop and say, "Yes, please." Remember that a game will have updates with new things to grind or buy at least once or twice a month typically. These time-limited cash shop items will usually have something from all 4 tiers as well as some free login rewards to try to lure players into returning who have taken a break with things that could only be purchased previously. The next thing I've talked about before and are to watch to earn ads in games that reward premium currency or the equivalent for doing so. Many free players will watch these ads to get ahead of other players, but remember that people who spend will also watch ads, so you're really just keeping up with the Joneses here if you think that the videos are going to give you an edge. Even if they do, are you really going to feel good about winning because you watched more ads than your opponent? Alright then, here you go. Lastly, I want to talk about cosmetics. Even if they grant you a small boost in power, this is what I would suggest to players to purchase if they don't want to give themselves an unfair advantage, but they still want to reward the dev team for making a game they enjoy through financial support. I like to set goals such as completing significant portions of the game so that I can feel better about earning them as a reward. Remember that nearly all games are balanced around pikers, so if you spend any more or any less, you are adjusting that difficulty slider, and finally, you should not blame or condemn other people just because of how much they spend or don't spend on their enjoyment. I hope this overview of pay-to-win mechanics helped you game responsibly. That is all I have for you today. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can do this again sometime.
Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time, just be patient, make a statement, try to enjoy your life. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless.